Okay, so now we need to figure out a way to keep our window on screen for a little bit. One way you might think to do so is just set up an infinite loop. Like if we have an infinite loop, we won't return and our window should stay around for a little bit. So we hit run. And yeah, here we go. We got a window on screen staying around, not immediately exiting the program. But it's got some problems. Like I click on it and it's not doing anything. I try to click the close button. It's not doing anything. It's kind of locked up, kind of hung, which is about what we'd expect considering we just made an infinite loop, which isn't doing anything in it. In fact, when I go away and try to switch back, it won't even come back. So while this solved the problem, we obviously need some sort of loop in our game or in our application, holding on to the process before it returns. Doing nothing is not the appropriate thing. In fact, something we need to do is we need to handle all those messages from the operating system. We need to handle that interaction. And the function that grabs those messages from the operating system is called GetMessage, and it returns a Boolean. So we can just put it in a while loop, and then we have something set up. It's like while we're getting messages, we stay in the loop. And once we get the message that ends the program, we can move on. And so we can let's go look it up to see what the parameters it has, again, like we typically do. And here we go. Like I said, it's a Boolean. It returns as an out param a message pointer. So what that means is it means that if we declare a struct and pass it in the pointer to that struct, it's going to go ahead and fill it in. And then these next three parameters are filters on the getMessage function, saying we only want to get some messages. Turns out as your main one, you want to get all messages pretty typically. And so this will go ahead and get that message, put that message information in the structure, and loop until we receive the quit message, at which point it'll fall through and exit the program. So if we do this, now we have a window. And it's not hung per se, like I can Alt-Tab, but it's still not really responding to anything I do, click or drag. Some of this stuff is working, like these menus are highlighting, and I'm able Alt-Tab, but it's not quite right. So the problem is, while we're getting the message, we're not really doing anything with it. The way we do something with the message is the function dispatch message. And that takes just a pointer to a function. Turns out there's another function that we need before that called translate message, which turns this style of message that we get from the operating system, which uses virtual keys and so on, into key codes for character keys. And that's what the translate message does. It goes through the messages and fixes it up so that we can use it in our application. So let's try that. Run. Window. Look at that. We can drag it around. We can minimize it. We can maximize it. We can click on it. We're getting a valid cursor as we go in and out. We can resize it. We're doing all the basic stuff that a window does. In fact, this dispatch, what it does internally is it takes that messages directed toward the window and routes it to the Windows procedure that we registered or that we set up in create window in the Windows class that we pass into the create window, and it calls it. We've passed in the default WndProc, so we're getting default window behavior. One thing though that we'll need to fix here shortly is when we hit close here. While we close the window successfully, we didn't actually quit the program. We can see that the program's still running. If we put a breakpoint, or excuse me, not breakpoint, because that's where we are. If we debug and break, we're in this. We're here. We just started waiting for a new message, And in fact, there's no real good way to ever get out of that because we've lost the window. So we're no longer have anything to really receive input. So what we need to do is set up that when that window closes, we want to quit the program. The reason this isn't by default is because most windows, you don't want to close the program when the window goes away. For example, when I open this combo box window, when it goes away, it fortunately doesn't close the program. So to do that, we have to replace this WndProc function with a version of our own. And again, I'm just going to go look up WndProc to get all the parameters and the specification. And here it is. So I'm just going to add, game main WndProc, name it, set it there, and get these parameters. And then we're going to just, again, we're just going to hook this function. We're going to go back. We still want most of the functionality of WndProc, the default WndProc, but we want to have the possibility of, if we see a message that we'd like to handle, do something different. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up. And with that, we should be, in theory, because we registered the new Windows procedure instead of this one, we should get called into our code and then use that to call the default WndProc. And run pretty much should act exactly the same, but if we put a breakpoint here and then trigger a message, good, we get a breakpoint. We're actually calling our Windows procedure. So now the one thing we want to do is when the window closes, we want to quit the application rather than continuing. So we need to just wait until we get a message that is, we have a choice. We have the WM close message, might make sense, but some of you might be familiar with WM destroy, which is the message we're actually going to use. Close is what happens when you click that close button. The close message gets sent, and the close comes on, and the window responds to close by properly taking itself and stop drawing and closing and doing that little animation and all those little things. When it's done, that window is then destroyed, at which point we can like, that window is gone, so this would be appropriate time to quit. But we have all these other scenarios where, like, all these other messages are passing right through this function. So with any of the other ones, we're just going to want to do the default. And after we've handled a message, we can return 0 to signify that we've properly handled that we have in fact handled the message. So how do we quit our application? Well, in Windows, what we really want to do is get this next get message, or an upcoming get message, to get the WM quit. So we need to post a quit message to the message queue. And in fact, there's a special function, PostQuitMessage, which does exactly that. And it takes an exit code that gets passed along with that message. So with that PostQuitMessage, we should be able to come here, get a 0 out, fall through, and exit the program. So let's go ahead and run that and see what happens. Run the game, doing the normal things, handling most of the Windows stuff, hit close, and look at that, our application is exited. And just to double check, we'll go ahead and put the post in and then walk through it. Run, we close the message, we get the destroy. We'll come back here, hit F5, we get the next message. The message is the quit message. We fall through and we exit our program. So that's it. Now we have a window, not really doing much exciting yet, but drawing on screen, responding to the quit message, and ready to get some new code. In the next video, we'll hook up D3D to start drawing something into our client area. Thanks for watching.